Hello and welcome to SoloCon 2022. I'm Idit Levine, the founder and CEO of Solo.
And I'm Brian Gracely, Vice President of Product Strategy. You know, Idit, over the last year, it's been challenging in many places for many of our customers, but we've also seen them overcome those challenges. They've been building new modern applications and they've been doing it at a pace that's faster than ever. What does that mean?
I wanted to thank first our customer for actually trusting us to help them accomplish their goals. And I'm really excited about the announcement that we're going to make in this conference that will make cloud modern application even easier to use.
Yeah. You know, we found that as our customers have been evolving, it's meant growth. It's meant they've had to take on new challenges, especially around growth. What does that growth mean for us?
If I have to, in one word, describe the last year for Solo, it would be growth, exponential growth. We saw a huge amount of customers adopting a Glue product in production, and very, very excited about that.
Yeah, one of the things we've seen is not only growth in customers, but happy customers.
Very happy customers. We have an almost 100 renewal rate, and those customers are trusting us to solve their most difficult problem in production.
Yeah, and one thing we like to point out is while we've got happy customers and we love happy customers, Solo's been very unique in that we found through a lot of different industry data, a lot of surveys, probably 30% of companies who have been looking at meshes have either looked to an alternative mesh or couldn't get it working. Solo is really out there defining what a mesh looks like when it's great, but also making it simple and making sure you can bring Istio and Envoy technology into your environment and do it successfully.
Yeah, and the finance market is also recognized that. So we recently secured 135 million growth in our fund in $1 billion valuation. It basically puts Solo as a unicorn status.
You know, Idit, I'm new. And while I'm super excited to be joining Solo and working with our customers, how has the rest of the team grown?
Yeah, no, we grew dramatically. We basically joined over 100% grow the company over the last year. We have Soloists joined all over the world to help us scale and improve every part of the business.
Yeah, you're going to see Soloists helping you with hands-on workshops, product roadmaps, talking about technology, and we're going to meet you out in the field, whether it's in the community or directly with you. So we're really excited about that.
So let's talk about product. Over the last year since we met, we continue grow our portfolio. We listen to your requirement, and we releasing Glue Edge and Glue Mesh to get better and better every release.
Yeah, and we're really excited about one of our big announcements this week, which is Glue Mesh 2.0, rethinking how to take your feedback, how to make the product so much better.
Yeah, so over the last year, we're working so closely with our customer and learning so much about their environment and their requirement. And honestly, we got to a point that we get all that feedback and we felt that it's not going to be good to continue doing it incrementally. We need to basically rethink about how we can do it perfect fit for each organization. And that's where Glue Mesh 2.0 is coming. The idea with Glue Mesh 2.0, there is two concepts that are extremely important. Number one is the API. And what we did there is basically came with the best API to make it simpler to actually consume. But more than that, it's very important. If you remember in the past, we had Service Mesh and API Gateway. We have them right now in the same platform. All of them run on Istio. And it was very important to us that the API will be the same. So basically, there is no look like you feel two different products because it's not a different product. And honestly, there is a lot in common with one of them. So we came with an API that will give you amazing feeling to be able to reuse everything that you're doing with the mesh and the edge. So that's the first one that happened. It's very, very important for us that it will be easy to use. And I think we made it very, very accessible that way. The second one, which is very important, is the workspace. And the idea is eventually all our customer, all the things that they're doing with those infrastructure, they want to do one thing in the end, and that curve piece of this infrastructure and delegate it to their application team. That's all they want. And then they also want to decide how much those application team can do. So that's basically the concept that we're announcing. Very, very enthusiastic and really excited about it is workspace. It's the ability to basically curve part of your infrastructure and delegate to a specific team with RBAC and permission. So that's the two pieces that is joining into the product. There's way more innovation there, but I will stop with this.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that all week. We've heard over and over from our customers, architecture is one of the hugest things that helps them differentiate the product. It helps them understand, I'm buying a product today that solves your problems, but it's designed to help take on new technologies that come along, whether that's WASM or GraphQL or other things that will come along. Now, the other thing, for anybody who's a GlueMesh 1.0 customer, we're going to make sure that it's really easy for you to get to GlueMesh 2.0. So we're so excited for you to see what's coming next.
But Solo is way more than technology. Solo is about making their customers successful.
And one of the ways that we do that is through the Solo Academy. And you're going to get to experience that hands-on on day 3. But let me give you a little bit of overview of Solo Academy. We realized that we couldn't just give you technology. We needed to make sure that you could understand the technology, get to use the technology, and be certified so that when you go back to your jobs, you go back to your environments, you're going to be expertly prepared to be successful. Now, we've seen over 8,000 people come to the Solo Academies. We believe it's the #1 academy for learning about Service Mesh and API Gateway. Over 1,500 people have now been certified on either Istio or Envoy, soon to be GraphQL and eBPF, and you're going to see all that on day 3 in our hands-on workshops. So we hope you take advantage of it, and we hope you get out there and be certified because it helps your career, it helps you be successful in your jobs. Obviously, if you're attending SoloCon, you know about the power of Service Mesh. You know about the momentum that's happening in the industry. But we think it's important for the new people that are here to understand, how did we get here? Why is this important? And we thought that it was important to look back and put some context around the momentum that we're seeing with Service Mesh.
And who is the best person to tell about that? Is Solomon Hykes, the founder of Docker and now Dagger.
Hey everyone, it's Solomon. I hope you're all having a good time, that you're all happy and safe wherever you are. I'm very happy to be part of this. Thank you for inviting me, Solo team. And honestly, my parents heard that I would be speaking at a conference called SoloCon. And of course they said, wow, our son is so famous that there's a conference actually named after him. And of course I said, yes, that's exactly what's going on. So nobody tell him. So I thought I would tell you a little story about my experience in a way that hopefully is relevant to your experience today. I'm sort of an old timer of cloud native, although I don't feel that old. I did see the last 10 years unfold like it was nothing. And I know some of you in the audience have too. And it's just amazing how much this whole space has grown. And so thinking about what I could share with you all that would be of interest and useful, I thought, obviously there's the origin story of Docker and containers and how that changed a lot of things in our industry. And that part of the story is well known. Containers did have a big impact, and they were just a building block, but an important building block to building even more things. What I thought I'd share is a little bit of the context around the process of launching Docker, why we launched it, and how we planned to launch it, what else we planned to launch, and what actually ended up happening. And that part, I don't talk about as much because most of the time people don't care. But it's relevant here. So here's what happened. We had this startup called .cloud, and it was a platform as a service, right? It took care of everything. It was a complete platform for your application in the cloud. It did hosting. It had a container runtime, which was sort of this hidden thing at the time. It had a distributed service mesh. It had load balancers. It had a building system. It had data persistence, and all of that was built on top of AWS with plans to go multi-cloud at the time. And our competitors were services like Heroku, Google App Engine, and our innovation was that we magically supported all these different language stacks and all these different databases and components when our competitors were very tied to one stack, right? This was before Heroku evolved to support multiple languages too, and then after them, gradually every PaaS. We did that first because we had containers, right? So our plan was, okay, well, this is a difficult business. Turns out building one platform that does everything perfectly for everybody is not easy. It's certainly not easy for a very large company, and it's even worse for a small startup like us. It was, 15 of us at the time. This is 2013. And so we thought, okay, let's break it up. Let's break it up into the individual Lego bricks, and let's open source each brick. And let's switch from building a car to giving away the blueprint to the engine. And then if we're lucky, we'll build, an engine related business. Let's turn our competitors into customers. So that was the plan. Took a while to get the money part right, as many of you know, but it definitely succeeded in terms of adoption. But here's the thing. Notice I did not say, let's just open source the container runtime. What we said was, let's break it up and let's open source everything. The container runtime, the builder service, the service mesh, the networking layer. And there were a few others, but I'll focus on the service mesh because I know this is something that you all are interested in. There's a lot of fun innovation and just great engineering work going on in that area. We basically had cloud native in a little box. It was not a great box, not a scalable box. We were just a small crew, but we basically were building out the outline of what is now the broader cloud native ecosystem. And one of the pieces in that outline was the service mesh, because what happens is when you're deploying an application across many compute units, many containers, in a very dynamic way, it's elastic, machines come and go, traffic comes up and down, new versions are built and released continuously. That ends up putting a lot of stress on the traditional load balancer. And we were using, I think it was Nginx at the time, which was very sturdy, very reliable. No issues there, high quality software. There were other options. The problem was the very dynamic and elastic nature of the workloads. That was a very unusual dimension of scale. The problem was not that we had too much traffic for Nginx to handle. The problem was that the map of backends that our cluster of Nginx proxies had to forward traffic to was changing too rapidly. We had, many thousands of endpoints, and then in the tens of thousands of endpoints. And every time any user of our platform would deploy or scale up or scale down, or any other automated change would happen in the container cluster, then we would have to reconfigure the proxies. And what we did at the time was we had this elaborate system where each Nginx instance, this managed cluster of Nginx servers, and alongside each Nginx server, we had a special configuration service that through a special API regenerated the whole Nginx config. And the problem with that is it became very, very large, but it sort of added this little layer of automation on top of a server that was not designed to be automated in that way. And, it kind of worked, but we had all sorts of issues. So then we re-engineered that and developed our own service mesh, and we called it Apache. I think that stood for Apache, but for hipsters. And that was a Node.js implementation of what we'd call now a service mesh. And it was a very experimental thing to do at the time. And I think that one's actually open source. But anyway, the funny part is that our strategy that led to Docker was, let's split up all the pieces of our platform, and then we'll launch one per week. And, that will give us a steady cadence of interesting projects to launch. And, the first one we launched was Docker, the container runtime, and we never launched anything else because, it took us years to just keep up with the interest in that one. So we never fulfilled the complete plan and vision of launching all of these projects, but that's okay because you all did it instead, and you continue in that direction and built so much more at such a high level of quality and innovation that it's hard to keep up with everything that's going on. And the Solo community is right in the middle of all that. It's the same spirit of having fun with technology and solving important problems and trending towards the best engineering solution together. And I thought that was just really cool. And I'm glad I get to be a little bit of a part of it by speaking here. So that's it. Thanks again for having me, and have a great time at this conference. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Solomon, for your partnership or for everything you did for the community. We stand on your shoulders.
And now we'd like to introduce Louis Ryan, who was the creator of the Istio project at Google. He's going to help us have a better sense of where Istio is in the community and where it will be going forward.
Hi, folks. My name is Louis Ryan. I'm one of the founders of Istio, and I'm excited to be here to talk to you today. I want to thank the folks at Solo for having me on, letting me talk to you about the value of service meshes and what's been going on in the Istio space. So let's dive right in. It's often useful to talk about why service meshes are important. Like why do they even exist? When we founded the Istio project, we had a nifty soundbite that we like to use, which was kind of secure, connect, and observe traffic between all your services. A pretty reasonable question right after that was, well, can I secure, connect, and observe traffic between my services using, the tools that I already have? And certainly there are some very capable tools out there that people use. There are lots of application development frameworks that people have been using for a while. Whether it's Spring or J2E or Express and Node, you can definitely do some of these things. But the truth is, as is usually the case, much, much more complicated than that. While you can do those things in, one framework, the truth is that in most enterprises, there is a large and diverse developer community using lots of frameworks all the time. Those frameworks evolve, they change, they get forgotten, and eventually some of them become legacy. And the one thing we all know as developers is that maintaining lots of code bases consistently is very, very expensive and sometimes impossible. So that's one of the major reasons why service meshes came into existence. Interesting enough, this is actually a very similar reason why API management solutions became a major industry segment. You could go and do API management using a framework in lots and lots of applications, but eventually that really starts to fall apart, right? When you need consistency for these kind of cross-cutting capabilities to do the thing. And it's the same with service meshes. So if you look at the reasons why people adopt service meshes, particularly in the kind of traffic control or observability space, it's they've been trying to maintain consistency for years and struggle, and it kind of becomes a pain threshold decision. They've been slowly suffering, like the frog boiling, and eventually they do hit a threshold moment, and they decide that it's just not really viable for them to keep doing what they're doing. It's also fair to say that this issue is, or these rationales aren't exclusive to kind of traditional enterprise IT with large amounts of legacy systems that they have to build and they've been building and maintaining for long periods of time. We also see the same kind of value propositions play out in what would be considered modern and dynamic engineering organizations throughout the industry. Ones with pretty high ratios of engineering budget relative to the amount of code that they maintain. Google, where I work, uses sidecar-like technology very extensively in production for the same reasons. Envoy was born out of, the needs at Lyft. That's why Matt was super motivated to get going. And I've talked to lots of companies that, use Istio or have built their own in-house service mesh solutions to solve for basically the same set of problems. Right. So it's an operational efficiency concern. And people want to be fast and agile these days, right? Like everybody's under pressure to deliver quickly and rapidly all the time. The other big motivating factor within the industry, that's driving buying decisions is really kind of security and compliance. And this is actually what's driving a lot of enterprises to make very quick decisions to adopt service mesh solutions, right? They want MTLS, they want zero trust capabilities. And if you look at the cost of maintaining observability or traffic management in applications and application frameworks, which is high, it's much higher to do this for really strong security stuff. And so people really are looking for off-the-shelf solutions in the space. Kelsey Hightower recently did a great talk on what he calls zero trust the hard way. And I really recommend people go dig that up and watch it. Where Kelsey talks about, well, okay, you want to do zero trust yourself. Here's what you have to do. Here's all the parts you have to put together. And if you were to ask Kelsey, he would freely admit that his demonstration is only showing a very small set of the concerns that you actually have to walk through to make a real solution in this space. And there's also outbound pressure or external market pressure in this world. You might have seen the proclamation from the White House recently about zero trust becoming a mandated best practice for software development in government and IT. And this is obviously driving a lot of interest, and as you might imagine in this space, no shortage of noise in the industry about what is and is not really as not something I want to get into today. I'm proud of the fact that Istio was really the first kind of open source solution to put a lot of the fundamentals of zero trust and capabilities into an effective solution that works in the enterprise. And it still is actually, in my opinion, the most capable and complete open source project in this space. There's still lots to be done here. Istio is by no means sitting still, but I think we've done a lot to move the industry forward in this world. Okay, so that's really enough about the why. Let's talk a little bit about what we've been up to in Istio and how the project's evolved. Istio was born with a pretty ambitious agenda and a lot of capability. Over the years, we've refined these capabilities and our architecture and everything else to kind of find a good market fit. And I think we've done that, particularly over the last maybe 2 years. A lot of work has gone into that, simplifying the solution, refining the APIs, really listening to our users and making sure that we have a solution that works for a large market segment. One area that's been particular focus is been to put a lot of investment into day two operations, particularly over the last 18 months, right? It was the core tenet of our 2021 roadmap, and lots of work has gone into that before, and lots of work in 2022 is going to continue to go into that. And that made it really a lot simpler for both, individual operators installing and maintaining Istio. And that has been really important, but also, we want to recognize that there are, a lot of vendors in this space, and they are maintaining Istio solutions for their users. And we wanted to provide them with the tools to, effectively maintain those solutions on behalf of their customers. You see a lot of that has been now leveraged by different vendors in the space. I work at Google. We've leveraged, these improvements to enable us to run upgrades for huge numbers of customers running Istio meshes in production with almost no customer touchpoint. And we do this every quarter. So like literally running upgrades for thousands and thousands of Istio clusters every quarter with no user involvement. So I'm really proud of the success and the efforts of the team in this space. It's almost Istio's 5th birthday, actually. I think 2017 in May was when we came out. And it remains the largest and most diverse project in the ecosystem. We have the most developers, we have the most diversity, the most contributions from the largest number of distinct places. And so we have a really active and vibrant development community. It's probably fair to say that a lot has happened in these 5 years. It's probably a gross understatement, and we've all been adopting to a lot over this period. But Istio has really matured over this time. We have a clear vision for the product, and also we take our responsibilities, to serve, the enterprise market very, very seriously. Right? We ship regular releases, we ship patches, and we take our CVE and maintenance responsibilities extremely seriously. And so, that was one of the most important things we felt we could do, so that people felt that they could really rely on Istio, right, in these kind of important use cases for their companies. For my part, I'm just as excited about the work that we've been doing in this space as I was those 5 years ago. Things have matured for sure, but there's still a lot more that we can do. I think there's a lot that we can do to really improve the lives of developers, and also, the people performing administrative roles in this space, whether it's network admins, security admins, or the operators of Istio itself. There's lots and lots that we can do. And so, I'm really excited about the prospects for the project, the roadmap that we have. I think we have a great community, and I think while we are a relatively mature project at this point, I think you will see, still an important stream of innovation coming out of the project over the next 5 years. And so I'm really excited by that. So at this point, I'd like to hand off, and just want to thank Solo again for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to talk to you for a few minutes about what's going on in Istio world.
Thank you, Louis. We appreciate all the work that you're doing in the community. Idit, I've mentioned that architecture is such an important part of what we do at Solo and a differentiator, but application networking requires really important architecture.
Yes. So to learn more a little bit about application networking, I want to introduce you Christian Costa, Field CTO in Solo, working a lot with our customers.
All right, thanks guys. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about what we do here at Solo. So we focus on application networking. So if you go to our website, you'll see things about Istio and Envoy and so on, but we're not a gateway company, we're not a service mesh company, we're an application networking company. We use those technologies to build our solutions, but we focus on how services connect to each other, how we secure those services, and how we control the traffic and the routing between them. So my name is Christian Posta. I'm the Global Field CTO here at Solo. I've been working on Istio and Envoy-based technologies for quite some time, over 5 years now. And I've written some books on this topic. Istio in Action, the latest book, will be coming out in the next few days. I also have my contact information up on the screen, and you can feel free to reach out to me anytime offline and catch up on any of the things that I've said here or what's going on at Solo. So we focus on, like I said, application networking, and I'm going to define that here in a second. But the way we do that is we abstract away the complexities and the details of the underlying networks. And if you're deploying on Kubernetes or on VMs and public clouds and data centers, you have different networking technologies to make these things work. We try to push things as close to the application as possible, so we have the most control and the most fine-grained scope for how we configure traffic routing and security. So application networking, what is that? Well, it basically comes down to services. When you deploy them, wherever you deploy them, they need to communicate with each other. They need to call other APIs. They might be calling databases or message queues or whatever, but they're making requests over the network. And when they talk over the network, things become unreliable, right? Just because the network is not reliable. So they need to do things like implement timeouts and implement retries and circuit breaking. And they also need to do things like capture telemetry about what's happening on the network. How many requests are failing? How many retries that they have to do, or how long requests are taking. Things like distributed tracing, implementing things that help with observability. service discovery, load balancing. These are all things that the applications need to do in these more cloud native and highly ephemeral environments. And these are not optional things. Because if the applications don't take care of these non-functional things, then they set themselves up for massive failures and outages and these types of things. So going to microservices in cloud is not all panacea. You still have to take into account the distributed systems nature of these applications and solve these problems head on. Let me give you a few examples. So when services communicate with each other, let's say service A is talking to service B, we need to implement a policy, like maybe service A can only call service B 3 times a minute. Or if calls fail, that we need to retry, but we can only retry a certain number of times during a particular period. Or things like service A can call service B, but not during a specific time, or maybe not on behalf of a specific client. And then, of course, the networking things that I mentioned, timeouts, retry, circuiting, those are all things that need to be taken into account. But these policies also add a level of complexity. In the past, we've done things like bake this stuff into the application. The application developers were responsible for this. Or we would offload things to some central team, like enterprise service bus team or API management team. So, if you've been in these environments, these enterprise environments, and you've seen how we've solved these problems, especially for internal communication use cases, it looks something like this, right? Where you have a central team managing a central capability, maybe API management. Traffic comes into the API management system and then gets forwarded off to other services. Now those services probably are communicating over load balancers, and then when traffic goes back to maybe another service, it passes through more load balancers and then through the centralized system again. Now there are drawbacks to this. There are drawbacks to the way that this has been implemented in enterprises. So we see a combination in some cases of some of this logic and some of this policies baked into the applications. Some of it is offloaded to load balancers. Some of it is offloaded to API management systems. And like I said, there's a lot of challenges to doing this. First, it's expensive. The type of middleware that's used to run and the hardware used to load balance and this kind of stuff, especially when you add more services, starts to proliferate and becomes very expensive. Now, when service A needs to talk to service B, and it has to go to a load balancer, and then the API management system, and then another load balancer, that introduces a lot of extra hops. More points and more steps and more areas where the call can fail for whatever reason. It makes it hard to trace those calls in that point. A lot of times it's using outdated technology. So, we here at Solo, we've been building around modern technology, and I'll go into that in a little bit. But some of our competitors are taking the technologies that they built 10 or 15 years ago and trying to market away the fact that this is legacy technology and that it tries to fit into these architectures. But it doesn't work. And then lastly, it doesn't scale. These centralized bottleneck teams or systems, it's very hard to take those and put those into a cloud environment and to build automation and some of the best practices that we've seen from DevOps into those systems. So a more modern approach kind of balances out these two different extremes. One, writing it directly into the application, and two, offloading it completely to some centralized system. The modern approach takes proxies and application networking technology and brings it close to the applications. So if you're familiar with the term service mesh, if you've seen things like Envoy proxy, this starts to become familiar. We want to leverage those technologies to be able to offload those capabilities from the developers, from the operations teams, and get uniformity and consistency so that when service A talks to service B, load balancing happens a certain way. Distributed tracing happens. Timeouts and retries are all configured the same way, regardless of what language or framework was being used to build the application. You fast forward a little bit more and you take a look at what we're doing here at Solo in partnership with a lot of our customers. So I've tried to distill a handful of patterns that they use to be successful and to solve these challenges. You'll see things here like multi-cluster. You'll see things here like a distributed API gateway, that the API gateway is built on modern technology like Envoy. You'll see things like a federated management plane spanning clusters, spanning environments, whether that's containers or VMs or both, maybe spanning on-prem and a public cloud, or maybe even multiple public clouds. But so we're able to get this decentralization of the application networking and balance that out with central management and tying that into the rest of your organization through declarative configuration and GitOps-based workflows. So all of this stuff, no matter how complex or heterogeneous the environment is, we can have simple and consistent policies for driving the behaviors and plug that into our existing CI/CD systems and drive all of this through GitOps and automation. Now, specifically going a level deeper, the API gateway that we have here at Solo is built on Envoy proxy. You can see in this picture, we add components around Envoy to make it operational. So from the configuration engine, which is, like I said, driven by declarative configuration, so think Kubernetes resources, to plugging in with security systems and rate limiting, and we've even built our own filters into the Envoy proxy itself. The mesh, so Glue Mesh is our enterprise service mesh, and this provides the multi-cluster and federated management plane. This also, this works for the east-west direction of the traffic, so the service-to-service communication, as well as at the edge, where you have untrusted traffic coming into the system. So now you have a unified API that handles multiple clusters, handles VMs, on-prem, public cloud, whatever, that manages the traffic at the edge as well as in service to service. So you don't have these bespoke APIs that, well, this thing handles north-south, this thing handles east-west, completely different, diverging, different types of technologies and so on. It's consistent, it's portable, and it's transparent to the end users. So Glue Mesh Enterprise is based on Istio. So, I'll show in a second, we have long-term support for Istio. We've built APIs to make Istio multi-tenant. We've built APIs to make it multi-cluster aware and simplify how you actually operate Istio across multiple clusters. We've tied in the API gateway natively. And this is not just something that we've imagined. We've been running this at scale with our customers for the last 3 years in battle-hardened, tier 0 type scenarios, financial, retail, insurance, health, all of the industries around the world. We have extensibility with WebAssembly, consistent security policies that span these environments to provide the foundation for a zero trust environment. And lastly, we've built a lot of tools to unify the observability information that we get, or like the telemetry and the metrics that we get back from a large heterogeneous environment like this. So what we're doing here at Solo, we're using the right technology. So Envoy at the edge, as well as in the service mesh. We've built the tools to make this enterprise ready from a security standpoint, from a tenancy standpoint. We can support Istio in production, FIPS-based distributions, ARM-based distributions, all the way back, CVE patching, all this stuff, all the way back to N-4 for long-term support. And lastly, everything we've built is built around the premise of declarative configurations and plugging directly into your Git-based workflows. We don't have all these extra databases and fancy rewrite UIs that you're locked into. It's all based on GitOps and the automations that can be built around that. Now, I've said a lot about the technology, about its power, about kind of the architectures, but it's best that you hear from our customers. We have hundreds of customers that are running this in production, like I said, at scale, tier 0, and it's best to hear from them. We have a handful of our customers that are speaking at SoloCon today, so I highly, highly encourage that you go check out their talks. I know there's still a lot more to announce and to discuss here in the keynote, so I'll hand it back to you guys.
Thank you, Christian. We really appreciate that. Now, the second big announcement that we're making this week is all about GraphQL. I know you're really excited about it. Tell us what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about the GraphQL. And the last year, we basically was working on actually take GraphQL and embedded it inside Envoy. This is huge. And to learn more about it, I want to introduce you Kit Babu, product manager of GraphQL in solo.io.
GraphQL is soaring in popularity today, and for good reason. It's a revolutionary change in the API landscape that puts API clients and front-end application developers in control of the data they consume. Many customers begin their first steps with GraphQL just with a simple monolithic deployment, where they take an existing REST API and then wrap that with GraphQL. Even this first step has tremendous benefits to organizations. Many of these back-end APIs have a ton of data in them. It's complicated to understand. For bandwidth-limited clients like mobile apps, they can't consume that much data. In this case, this is putting clients in control with GraphQL of the data they're getting for those REST APIs. When our customers see success in these early stages of adoption, that simple monolith starts to incorporate other APIs, other REST APIs, gRPC APIs. Now these clients are no longer going to distinct, separate REST API endpoints, but a single API endpoint with a unified graph to consume that data. From there, we see customers with more and more GraphQL APIs looking to federate those APIs into a single graph that spans all of their GraphQL API deployments. The eventual conclusion of this architecture is federating that graph across all environments, not just the customer's local cluster, but on-premises, cloud-based deployments, partner APIs, and SaaS APIs, unifying all of those together in a uniform application backplane that's both secure, reliable, and scalable. Adopting GraphQL has great benefits, but also significant responsibilities. This is critical business data, after all, and access to this data must be secure, resilient, and reliable. To address this need, we see many customers deploying an architecture where they stand up a GraphQL server to integrate multiple upstream APIs into a GraphQL API, and then front that GraphQL server with a proxy to provide the application networking policies they need. This architecture is functional, but has several important drawbacks. First, it's another application development task, a responsibility that falls between the front-end application development teams and the back-end developers. Second, it's another application deployment to build, deploy, and manage. Third, there can be an overlap of responsibilities between the GraphQL server and the proxy for things like authentication, authorization, caching, rate limiting, and data protection. At Solo, we see a unique opportunity to help our customers by simplifying and optimizing access to their back-end data by making GraphQL a native feature of Envoy itself. This capability will allow our customers to use Envoy itself as a GraphQL server and completely eliminates the need for a separate application deployment in your GraphQL architecture. Supporting GraphQL directly in Envoy significantly reduces the operational overhead and complexity of managing a separate application deployment. It also optimizes network performance by providing native integration with Envoy and eliminating an extra network hop to the GraphQL server. It allows platform and app dev teams to use declarative configuration from their GraphQL APIs all the way down to their platform resources. It also allows you to leverage the native filtering capabilities of Envoy to handle rate limiting, caching, and other application networking policies instead of integrating with third-party libraries in your applications on your own. Finally, this instantly enables GraphQL in any architecture where you have the proxy, scaling from the simplest monolithic APIs to the most complex multi-cloud federated graphs. All right, Idit and Brian, back to you.
Thank you, Keith. That was great. We're excited about GraphQL as you are. We hope everybody else is too. Now, Idit, there's been a buzz around the industry about this new technology, eBPF. I know we've been really excited about it. How are we learning from it and how are we putting it in our products?
Yeah, so honestly, we're working on it for a while, over a year. And basically, eBPF in general is the ability to extend your operating system. It's kind of like a plug-in to your operating system. One of the things that we were doing, we really think that we can use that technology to actually supercharge the service mesh Istio. And in order to do that, we were working on it internally for the company for over a year. And while doing it, we had some challenges, right? It's not a simple technology. You still need to understand the operating system really well, and you need to understand how to develop it and how to share it. And here, we actually got inspired a lot by Solomon Hykes and decided internally to build a tool called Bumblebee. And what Bumblebee is doing, it's basically helping you to build it and share it as an OCI image. So basically, it's like Docker for eBPF. That's helped us a lot to accelerate our development inside the company. Now, we were so excited about the technology, and honestly, it's enabled us to go so much faster that we decided to actually give it back to the community. So we open source Bumblebee. It's an open source project. It's getting a lot of attention. Please go and check it out if you are interested in learning more about eBPF. But as I said, all of this done because we wanted to enable our product. So to learn more a little bit about the work that we were doing, putting eBPF in our product, I want to introduce you Yuval Kochavi, our Chief Architect.
Thanks, Idit. eBPF is an amazing technology that has been gaining more usage in recent years. I think that in 2022 we will see increased adoption of eBPF as major Linux distributions are starting to support BTF, a kernel feature that enables eBPF portability. In Solo, we explored to see how eBPF can help our customers. This is what we have in store. Service mesh acceleration. Sidecars proxies add latency to your application. We plan to use eBPF to accelerate the throughput and latency of your service mesh by short-circuiting the network stack between the sidecar and the application. Observability. Showing you extensive Kubernetes-aware networking metrics for your workloads, whether they have a sidecar or not. We really believe in the crawl, walk, run model, and with this feature, you can have advanced observability even if you're just starting your mesh journey. We plan to allow you to leverage Bumblebee, our open source eBPF observability tool, to allow you to have meaningful, low-overhead, Kubernetes-aware custom metrics, so you can create metrics that make sense for your business, and deploy them effortlessly using the Kubernetes primitives that you're already familiar with. And finally, security. We want to leverage the power of eBPF to enable Layer 3 and Layer 4 security policies, regardless of the networking layer you currently use. If you're using a CNI that supports network policy, like Cilium, we will integrate it with our product. However, we have heard from our customers that reinstalling a new CNI for existing environments is a high-friction task. That's why we plan to introduce eBPF-based CNI plugin that will use eBPF to provide low-overhead security policies on top of every existing CNI. Thank you, and back to you, Idit.
Thanks, Yuval. So as you understand right now, Solo is not an API gateway company or a service mesh company. We basically build a platform that will give you everything your application networking needs.
You know, I hope you're excited, as you can see, Idit is about what's going on. We have a great week planned for you. Day 1 and day 2, we've got 3 tracks because we know that you're interested in lots of different technologies. You're going to have the ability to engage with our product teams, our technology teams, look at roadmaps, see what's going on, learn about technology. And on day 3, we're doing hands-on workshops. So a great opportunity for you to learn, for you to interact with the community, and to get hands-on with the technology. Now, we're really excited that SoloCon is launching today, but we're also excited today's International Women's Day. And for us, we're super well represented by Idit being our founder and CTO, both a technologist and a business leader. We hope you have a great time this week. We're so excited to interact with you.
Thank you so much, and I really hope you will find the content useful.